Irony. There are three main categories of irony. These are verbal, dramatic, and situational. There are a bunch of other categories as well, such as classical, romantic, tragic, comic, historical, cosmic, and Socratic irony, but these all basically fall under those headings anyway, so we won't touch on them. Verbal irony. The most common kind. Verbal irony is when the literal and figurative meaning of what is being said are different. So all forms of sarcasm fall under this category, as well as any instance where there are multiple meanings of what is being said. So, for example, if it was raining outside and someone said, "Lovely weather we're having." Or there's a woman staring at a statue at the museum, and a man sidles up and he looks at her, and then he looks at the statue, and then he says, "Nice bust." Multiple meanings, verbal irony. Dramatic irony is quite different. It's usually a literary or performative device where the audience knows something that one or more of the characters of the story do not know. So for example, in Final Fantasy VII, when Cloud dresses up like a lady to seduce the bad guy and rescue Tifa, the audience knows that it's a bloke in a dress, but the bad guy does not. That's dramatic irony. Or in traditional literature, when Oedipus is searching for the man who murdered his dad, but the audience knows that he himself is actually the murderer. Situational irony. Often when people say that something is ironic, this is generally what they mean. Situational irony is essentially when there's a reversal of intention or purpose or expectation versus the results. So, the best example of this is something like, Wile E. Coyote sets up a trap for Roadrunner, but he himself falls into it. The term irony is very often misused, even by native English speakers, and it's most often confused with coincidence or poetic justice. Famously, Alanis Morissette's song Ironic cites multiple examples of things that are not at all ironic. For example, when she says, "An old man turned 98, he won the lottery and died the very next day." That is not irony, it's simply an unfortunate confluence of two events. A black fly in your Chardonnay is also not ironic, just unfortunate. And neither is rain on your wedding day. However, to give one more example, if you were to turn a rainy wedding day into something ironic, through dramatic irony it could be, if it turns out that it wasn't actually raining but there was a sprinkler system on the roof and the audience could see it and the characters could not, then that would be dramatic irony. It could also be verbal irony if the bride turned and said, "This is the happiest day of my life," while upset and surrounded by wet guests and a melted cake with tears rolling down her face. Or it could be situational irony if they had planned to move inside to avoid getting wet by the rain, but then it turned out that there was a water tank on the roof and it leaked and half a megaliter dropped on the heads of the guests.